Yeah. The question is, who is your neighbor? And who is my neighbor? That's the question. Always we talk about this is my neighbor and that's my neighbor. What does it mean that that one is your neighbor? Well, it's a very good question. Yeah, a certain man asked Christ, who is my neighbor? Why did he ask that? There was something that Jesus Christ said to this man. This man said something, mentioned something when he was reading from the book of Luke. That's where I'm reading from. Luke chapter 10, verse 27. That's where all started. And it reads, "So he answered and said, you shall love your Lord, your God, with all your heart." It's about love. Yeah, that's all about. It was teaching about love. Put in your mind, it's love. With all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. So you love your neighbor as you love yourself. With all your strength, with everything, you love the Creator. With everything. Don't leave anything out. With everything. Because for you to be is because He was before. For us to say we are alive and active, the life is Christ, who is life. So He's teaching about love. We were before, you say, while we were still sinners, He died for us, which means He gave Himself, who is holy, no blemish in Him. And He said, I come for you. I'll follow you. Whatever mess you are in, I don't mind. So long as you have life. You and me, life. So it's about loving Him. And who? Your neighbor. I don't know who's your neighbor. Who neighbor is this? The one that you love and the one who loves you. It's about that neighbor, that neighbor, that neighbor, whoever. It's about your neighbor. I don't know who your neighbor is. I know my neighbors. So when I say love your neighbor as yourself, which means if you love your neighbor, you have neighbors around you. They love you. So who are your neighbors? And your neighbors, who are their neighbors? Is it you? They say if you plant a seed, that is good. You harvest from that good seed. Plant a bad seed, you harvest from it. So it's up to you, not me. Because you are responsible for what you do, your life. Christ is looking at you as an individual, not at Him. We have excuses most of the times. You say, I'm doing this because that person did this. No, you have chosen to do that. That person they have got no control over your life. Neither me. If you go around, speak that I did this to you. No, it's a lie. That's why you are doing that. You have chosen to do that. Yeah. Whatever you do, the center is your heart to decide. So if you say, oh, because such and such, it's a total lie. You are just giving an excuse of your failure. You are just giving an excuse because you don't want to be answerable. If someone is asking you questions, you don't want to answer. So you come up with your plan. Your plan with Christ will not work. Love your neighbor So the word here started from here. And this person came and said, and Christ, after this person has said this, Christ said, "You have answered rightly. Do this and you will live." Which means if you have that love, because he chose to love us while we were still sinners, it's not because we loved him. No, he loved us. So we love because he did. He gave. That's why we give love to the others. So he said, if you do not forgive your neighbor, you do not forgive the person who has wronged you, because he chose to forgive us because we have sinned against him. So the same way, if I have someone, I've got something against the other person, but I call under the name of Jesus Christ, he will refuse. He say, yes, I gave myself before whatever you are doing, so that you ought to know how to love one another. Love. Who is your neighbor? The person that you love. Not necessarily the person next to you. No. You are open to someone who's very far, not even close to you. That's your neighbor. Where is your neighbor? And who is your neighbor? How do you identify them? It's a free heart between you and them. Whatever is happening, there are no questions. Why that? No, you are free with the person. Someone might be close to you, but if there is something, you drive miles and miles to reach that person, and you sit down with that one. Then you find solution. Always, that's what you do. You pick up a call, and the person is miles away. That's your neighbor. That's why that one happened. He was asked, who's your neighbor? So Jesus Christ was teaching, who is my neighbor? He asked, Jesus was teaching. Yeah. Here, Luke chapter 10, I started from verse 27. And he was answering him. There was a man who was robbed, beaten, left to die. There was a person, a Levite, or in the same neighborhood, the Levite or a pastor, a priest, like a pastor, in the same area with the person who was left dying. The pastor or the church member. Let's say your pastor has seen you, you're into trouble, any problem you are in, they just look at you. You sort it out for yourself. You go to the person that you worship together, the member in that ministry. They just look at you, oh, it's your problem, it's not mine. Then someone else passing by, you don't even know them, not in the neighborhood, somewhere else. They're asking, what's the problem? You say, I'm in this situation because some people hate me. They've left me to die. And that person picked that person with their money, helped, put them in a hospital, they get well, and the question comes, who is your neighbor? And they said, the person who came from far and helped. That's the neighbor. Do you help for the sake of indeed helping? That remains your answer to yourself, not to me. Christ will answer that, will ask that question. Who is your neighbor? So choose for yourself. I'm not going to choose for you because I know who are my neighbors according to what we are. So answer for yourself. Who is your neighbor? Is the one that you love. Not necessarily the person is next to your house. You are open, free mind with the person who is very far. That's your neighbor. But we ought to love with the love of Christ. Love from the heart with simplicity.